back into the community?
Well, I'm showing you a room. This would be a room for a woman and one child. So, pretty basic, but adequate. We do have signs around the refuge, and this is one of them, this is a no-hitting place. They just say, so no one can hit you in this house. And we say, no, it's a no-hitting place.
This is where myself and my son stayed. This was the bunker. I felt quite privileged that I did have a view. I mean, in these circumstances, you have to make the most of everything. So it was like, okay, son, you know, we're just on holiday, and just pretend we're by the beach and you've got all this harakeke out there, and just over there is the beach. Our outdoor area. I'd often take the clothes racks off and put a couple of chairs here, and us women would sit there and smoke up a storm. Try to alleviate a bit of stress. Yeah, and this is where my son often potted around on his bike. All the other kids. It was good to have a counsellor there to say, no, you're not crazy, you're just highly stressed. And it's not unreasonable, because guess what? You're in fear of your life.
You fight more than one thing. You fight homelessness, you fight addictions and whatever trauma you've suffered throughout your life. So it's sort of a real bigger picture than, but you only know that when you start to reflect on things. At the time, it's probably a small picture to you or no picture at all.
I really do believe that on the whole people don't understand it. I don't think it's an easy thing to understand. It's not easy to understand that people have actually moved so far out of society that they don't have the normal links that we take for granted of going to the doctors, or going to schools, of interacting. And I really guess a good example of that is, you know, homelessness sometimes for people is about not talking to anybody else all day, because they don't have any links into the rest of the community.
Nice to see you back again. That's right. Haven't seen
Been a
you
long while.
Yes, it is.
And I haven't come for tea.
No, that's great, isn't it?
Just come to have a look around.
A whole range of people come here. We do have people that are living on the streets and living in cars, living in what we would call inappropriate accommodation, or, you know, without warmth and really without much shelter in some cases. But we also have a lot of people from council flats, Housing New Zealand flats and bed sits, people from boarding houses and the night shelter guests come in here as well. The main service that we provide here is breakfast and dinner in the soup kitchen for 6 days a week, Monday through to Saturday. The longer I've been here, the more I realise how important not only the food is to people that come in, but the company, the atmosphere, being able to meet up with people that they know and meet a few people that they don't know.
Even if you rehouse someone, if you don't build social networks around them, you can't hold them in place. They won't stay, they'll go back on the street, and we can understand why. Because people like to be with other people, they like to interact with others, and to be stuck in a flat that you can't really afford and can't pay the power for by yourself is not really attractive, I think, for anybody.
There was this old guy, he used to sleep under the trees down over there. He just had tarpaulin and that. And then there was a couple of my mates, Michelle and Kingy, and they used to sleep in the toilets over there. And then me and my missus, we used to, sleep over there. So it was like a commune type of thing. Yeah, we all knew each other, and you can't rip each other off, and, you know, watch out for each other's stuff and that. I miss the people, not the situation, but yeah, the people, yeah, because they're good people, yeah.
And that's the greatest challenge of working with homeless people, is to build them up. And you build it up by having a conversation. To actually talk and say good morning to a homeless person is a huge social interaction.
People will be in a park at a certain time of day because they know a person who walks their dog, who's quite a friendly person, will sit down and have a chat with them for half an hour. Now that casual conversation is incredibly important for that person maintaining a sense of who they are and really coping with the situation they're in.
If you provide services for people, so people are in appropriate accommodation, they get the healthcare, they get the social supports that they need, it is much, much cheaper than providing emergency department care, intensive care, the police time, prison time, you know, the services needed if that support's not given.
$1 Million Murray was an article written by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker in 2006. The article took an example of a homeless man in New York by the name of Murray, and they costed the interface of the services that he used over the duration of his homelessness, and found that adding up all his detox days, his hospital visits, his police cell nights, his social service usage, came to $1 million, therefore his name became $1 Million Murray. And people thought, this is crazy. We are spending $1 million of taxpayer funds maintaining this person in a miserable homeless state. Is this the best we can do? We're not solving his problem of homelessness, we're maintaining his problem. And they worked out that wouldn't it have been cheaper to have bought him an apartment, given him a social worker and a nurse, than spend all this money on the provision of support services for him as a homeless man.
So you know I'm making a documentary about homelessness, I told you before, yeah? Do you guys know many young people who are homeless?
Yeah.
Really? Like, how many young people do you think are homeless in Wellington, do you think? Can you guess?
20 to 50.
No, not that.
Yeah, no, there's so many.
There is quite a few, and we all look after each other.
Yeah, really?
We started to collect these homelessness statistics, and we realised when we started talking about them and comparing with other services that we seemed to be the only ones who were collecting that information. So because we were a very small service, it was just myself and then eventually a second staff. After a year or so, we had only a database of maybe 120 clients, but the homelessness data on those few people, they became very relevant nationally, and they were sort of published and discussed and talked about and referred to. And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, it's great that people are so interested in this data, but it's not really representative, because obviously the sample is far too small. But it became obvious then how little information was actually collected by services on homelessness.
I think we could improve data collection in New Zealand. We don't have enough data on homelessness, which means we can't say how many people are homeless.
There is no collection of data around food parcels, around housing. Probably the only statistic we have is how many people are on the emergency waiting list, like A level, for Housing New Zealand. It's probably the only statistic that anybody will even agree to. The rest of the ones, we give out our food parcel statistics that you get told that you're making up or you're lying. If you put out a thing about poverty, they go, well, there's no definition of poverty.
We do need to know who's homeless, what's causing their homelessness, how long they've been homeless, what services they need, because you really need to specifically target services in order to prevent homelessness to the population that you've got. And with the data we've got at the moment, that just isn't possible.
These questions make me think it would be really interesting to have data and have statistics, because there are a lot of interesting questions and we can't answer them. We don't know. So Do you know? No.
Some people might argue maybe it's through lack of data and information. It's a relatively small problem, but I would argue that excellent is a relatively small problem or small issue, which I would argue that it's not, and that it is actually larger than people consciously know now. But if that was true, then we're in an ideal position to stop it becoming a significant issue in New Zealand.
I think that there is a need for us to determine and for us to look in New Zealand at a wider definition of homelessness and to not allow ourselves to be driven by a stereotype, because the stereotype is not typical, in fact.
I think we need a consistent understanding of homelessness and stop putting heads in the sand, I would call it. You know, even my parents' friends that I talk to, they don't believe that there's homeless people in Christchurch. They just don't see it.
It seemed like yesterday I was biking to school. I was like 12 years old, biking to school and stuff. And then I thought, well, hang on, I'm 29. Where have I spent my life? You know, out here with nobody, you know, in Burwood Forest. You know, I wished I had my parents coming in and saying, right, bedtime, Carl, instead of, you know, some security guard coming over going, you can't sleep here, mate.
In terms of improving New Zealand's response to homelessness, one of the first things and one of the most crucial things is central government recognition of homelessness and the adoption of one definition and some statutory legislation around responsibility and whose responsibility it is to respond to people who find themselves homeless. In other countries, there's usually a primary piece of legislation. Its sole purpose is to clearly define who's responsible.
Without central government policy, there's no, it doesn't exist as an issue. A starting point would be definitely to actually have proper data.
A definition would help, I think, the society and for people to sort of say, hey, yeah, that is homelessness, and those are things that I need to be concerned about.
I think we have the knowledge today that we can do something about it.